Hey everybody, welcome to episode 5 of the Rugby Analysis Deep Dive with me, Geraint Davis. In this episode, I speak to Joe Larkin, who is Head of Performance Analysis at ASM Clermont Auvergne. We look to decode the finer details of decision-making behaviours of outside backs. We'll focus on top 14, European Cup and Gallagher Premiership footage, and pick out individuals who consistently break the line and put other players into space. Please do subscribe to the channel, like and share the video to help the channel grow. Enjoy. Joe, really pleased you've agreed to come on to episode 5 of the Rugby Analysis Deep Dive. You're the first analyst that we've had on, so if you can just quickly introduce yourself, give us a little bit of history, and then tell us about the topic area that you've chosen.
Thanks, Jeep. I'm Joe Larkin. I'm over with ASM Clermont Auvergne. I've been here for my 4th year going into. Previously, I worked for Harlequins and for Gloucester, and that's where we crossed paths with Gloucester, coaching in the academy. I've been in analysis for probably 7 years. I've done my few of my coaching badges, but coaching is something that I'm really interested in as well as analysis. So I'm quite lucky. I have sort of the professional of analysis and the sort of amateur and academy side of coaching. So learning in both situations is really good for me.
Clearly got a real interest in the coaching side of it, and that definitely transfers then into your ability to analyse. And how do you find that currently when you're out in Clermont?
Hopefully it does. Sometimes it makes you appreciate how hard coaching is at times. Sometimes in analysis you can get sucked into it being quite easy by watching the video, and that's in terms of playing. Obviously it's easy to watch, but also it's in terms of coaching, like, oh, that message there wasn't quite clear. But for example, when you have to deliver the message, it's sometimes very difficult to deliver it concisely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely one of the challenges of both professions. Well, without further ado, Joe, let's get into it. We're going to talk through various clips. We're going to focus on a little bit of top 14 rugby. Inevitably, with a bit of Clermont in there, but lots of different teams. I'm going to particularly focus on passes and indeed on how they then create line breaks. Really interested to see it. Let's get into it. Okay, so first clip, Joe, we're going to have a quick look at passing to start with. And one of the things that we've discussed on some previous dives is the type of pass the players go with. We've got two very different types of passes you've just seen. So Billy 12 trees to start with. Just tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in terms of his pass, Joe.
So on his pass here, he's got a really high elbow on the outside arm, like really nice high elbow. The ball's slightly out away from his body, which means his body's not going to interfere. His right elbow's tucked in nicely, and he's got quite a good base from which to launch the pass. If you look at his sort of his target, he's spotted his target early. He's also looking slightly at the defender. So if, for example, there was a defender who got up really, really sharp, he might be able to make the decision to hold the ball. He's not already launched it too early.
Yeah, absolutely. So really nice points you picked up with the pass itself. It ends up then as an end over end, and then just in terms of where it's being caught, we think about the range that we'd like a ball to be caught, and that's pretty much smack on. So just in terms of its transfer, of course, caught early, it can then be transferred across. Do you talk about your finger position, Joe, in terms of catch?
Yep, so the early catch from Atkinson there, and if you look at his head as well, so his fingers are up, his hands are up, and he's not actually taken his eye off the ball until he's caught it. He knows that at that moment there, he's still looking at the ball. And when he feels it in his hands, then he starts to look.
Yeah, and then of course he's going for a spin pass on this occasion. So you've got 12 trees going for a push pass, but then in terms of the mechanics of the pass, an interesting thing I thought we might go through is the fact that actually the mechanics are very, very similar. So we've still got outside elbow kicked, we've got lead elbow tucked in, we've got fingers pointing down currently, and it's only at that last motion we then see a difference. Now the pass itself again is pretty accurate, dropping off slightly, but it gets to the point pretty accurately. And then just a slightly different angle, just to see that again. So you can see the hand position.
I like, again, the way he's focused on the catch. He's now looking at that outside defender, and he's made that decision that he can beat them. If he didn't think he could beat that defender, he would hold the ball.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the point of the scanning is really important. I think a lot of coaches now will be thinking about square hips and about maybe having the right foot further forwards. But the question always is, what is the intention of this movement? And the intention of the movement is to beat defenders. Has it done that? It has done. So in terms of achieving your outcome, I think he's nailed that one.
If he was dropping that ball off his shoulder, then I think he would be squarer. Whereas because he's decided to throw the big pass, he knows that the biggest danger is that he can't throw it hard enough, and maybe he's more confident to have that slightly open body.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, mechanically, it makes it a lot easier to have your inside foot planted and to be able to drive off that rather than having a fully square hips or square shoulders. That makes it an incredibly challenging pass. It probably slows the pass slightly. So it's about the context of finding the way that you perform the action. Just for this next one, we got Ryan Mills on this one, a push passer. So he likes these push passes in wide open spaces. And then just in terms of the mechanics, again, we're seeing a lot of similarities. But I thought there was a key difference in terms of just how far out his elbow kicks. His outside leg is forwards as he passes. So he's passing across his body slightly. Just in terms of the impact of that, it's interesting when you look at their defenders in front and where their eyes are just fully fixed on him. He's able to then put the ball out into space, and a line break comes from it. And then just this last one, just the width of the pass really caught my eye. That it's an end-over-end pass. Again, going through that high elbow situation. Ball's tucked in. As you picked up already, you've got eyes focused on the outside defender initially, and then transfer then to where the ball's going. Nice and flat. And then his target, nice and accurate. So what would be your message in terms of style of pass, and which ones break the line, Joe?
Ones that work. So the goal there is to get the ball as quickly as he can to someone who can find space. And what he's managed to do is he's got it across that defender, and he's got the space. If it was a nice, lovely, beautiful spin pass, it wouldn't make any difference to the line break. So the speed at which he can get it out there and make sure he takes advantage of that area, that's the most important.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree. So we've got some similarities in terms of mechanics. We've got some points which you see pretty consistent across players and across teams, but then there's small variations in their execution, in their technique. Outcome is pretty much carbon copies of each other. Into some top 14 rugby then, Joe. So just talk us through what you're seeing here.
So this is Charlie Ungatai, who's a Kiwi centre. What I've got a few clips of him and just his ability to, and this will be a general theme throughout, their ability to have different threats or different options through their ability to pass, their ability to read defenders, and then their ability to kick, which we'll get onto. But on with him here, so the first one you saw a little pass. This one looks simple, it's a turnover, so it's come off a turnover line out. He's just decided that the ball needs to get out as fast as it can. And if you look at that pass, technically, is it perfect? Again, if you look at his hand position, that's good there. The elbow's high. He's launched his hands. Maybe you could be really hypercritical that his hands haven't gone through the target as much as we'd say if we were exaggerating. But look at the actual pass.
Absolutely. I think that's a really key point. If you take it right back and watch it with a decent bit of speed, the pass doesn't follow a technical model perfectly. It's a variation on the things that we've just seen. Ball is dropped quite low. A lot of coaches talk about keeping the ball high. Ball is actually below his hips right now. Is the lead hand, you could argue, is dropping. The passing hand has never gotten to straight. And yet the pass is really effective. So it's about variations of a theme rather than a set technical model. I think is a key message. And then just interested there, Joe. What do you see once he's passed the ball?
He continues his run and he's trying to get into support on the inside. He certainly, in the clips to follow, that he does that really well. So he's not just decided that his job's done. He's supporting on the inside.
Go into the next clip, Joe.
So here, Ungatai is in the scrum half position. So this is obviously a set move from Leon in this sense. He starts off in the scrum half position. You see him with his 12, the 9s at the front. He then peels out. I would hazard a guess that it's a pre-called play, that he's going to try and expose that seam between, I think it's the 7 of Breve and the back lifter, I presume, of Breve on there. And he's just going to drop the ball inside to his winger.
And I just think about the just body language wise, Joe. It's interesting you're saying is probably pre-call been inside. Body language wise, I'm not sure at any point he's saying about that ball going outside.
No.
But why do you think he still manages to fix those guys, Joe? What are the things about his body language that say that he can't be ignored?
Well, the way that he takes the ball to the line, or also you have to appreciate who is outside of him, and he'd be aware of that beforehand. Mm-hmm. The reason that can maybe be pre-called is the fact that there's Matthew Bastro coming like a train outside of him. Those defenders have to respect. He engages the defender in his face, and he knows that it will become a foot race between the back lifter in the line out and his winger, and they would back that their winger is going to win that race. Absolutely.
Yeah, such an important point. So the ball carriers on the outside, they are enough distraction to hold a little bit outside defence. And then just his body language is pretty direct right now. That could easily be a real strong carry. And even the pass itself is a fairly blind pass. So there's no full turn of the head. So it doesn't give away too many cues that the ball's going back inside. It's a potential short ball or a carry in terms of what the defence might interpret. And then again, just working really hard after the pass to support the ball.
That's definite. And if there was that ball came back inside, he would probably score under the post there because of his ability to re-accelerate after the pass. Mm-hmm. If he's that dropped underneath, he's under the post.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yep. So working hard after the ball is definitely one of the features that stand out for him. But nice score in the corner. So into your next clip, Joe.
So this one, as you mentioned earlier, guys have got all options. So you have to be wary as the defender in front of him that he's going to carry. So the way that he engages you, if he's doing that, then you can't just leave him and say, oh, he's going to pass it, because he can run at you as hard as he can and bump you, get his hands through, and have that. They've attacked a similar space.
Certainly. Yeah, so it's not vastly dissimilar from what we've seen before.
No.
We've got Bastro's on an outline in this occasion, and then they bring in 13 in on a short line. So the outside defenders still can commit to make maybe a double tackle because they know the variety of skills he's got. And within your preview, Joe, how much would you be looking at players like this and thinking about the variety that they offer in terms of how you then defend against them?
Massively. We'd be wary of if it's someone who's got an all-court game like him. You're wary of everything around him. You're wary of the carry. You're wary of the pass. You're wary of the offload. With some players, you might be more focused on, let's be really hit on the ball carry. So if that was Bastero coming in that situation, maybe we'd be more focused on what he's going to do with the ball rather than what he can give to other people. Here he can feel that they're coming up hard around him. So that's why the little double pump that he does means ideally he probably wants to give the ball before the defender gets there, but once he sees him here, he knows he's not going to do it. But this is great play, because some people would sort of do the first pump and then decide that it's not on and hold it. He's still got the confidence that he can absorb any hit and give the pass. And also very good support as well. The guy doesn't just stop because he doesn't get the initial.
Absolutely, that outside line just into a space which maybe doesn't appear to be there initially. Nice score in the corner. Okay, so into a different focus, Joe, and different scenarios. Just tell us what you're seeing.
On here, this is Finn Russell. So this is almost his ability to play in different ways. So this one here, he's out the back of a pod. He's taken the ball, he's taken to the line, and he's hit the short man. With Finn Russell, I don't know anything of him as a player outside of what I see, but you see the way his head's always moving, he's changing his rhythm. I think it would be really hard to defend against him, because he sometimes looks so disinterested in what's happening that you maybe switch off from him. And the way that he just changes his pace means that he's a massive threat.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, in episode 1, we picked up on a bit of the play of 9 and some of the body language could look disinterested. Then in this second phase, so in a flowing pattern, it's just these little awkward movements. So right now, just in terms of where head is, that looks like it's quite possibly going on the back in terms of where head is. He's looking across head, but the head's constantly turning, and there's just little shows of the ball. there's probably 2 or 3 little movements of the ball in there that are really subtle. It just means defenders have to bite in because they can't ignore him. And then even players who are coming around behind feel that they still can't quite ignore it, and just puts people into spaces that you don't think would be there.
Definitely. And now with most fly halves, they have to have this ability in their repertoire.
Yeah, this is one of my favourite ones, mainly because of just how early he's seen this opportunity. So ruck's formed. I can already see the kind of body language of the ball and some talking, and then just in terms of what he's seen in front, the picture is known pre-receipt, so he knows what's there. He's made the call of what's there, and then it's just about executing. He was a good 15-20 seconds ahead to play there. So what do you see in there, Joe?
And the details that are making that decision for him, he can see that Bird is holding the second row for Leon, so he knows he's got a slight interval between Carl Ferns and the first defender out the ruck. Mm-hmm. So he knows he's isolated with 3 or 4 meters there, and then that's where that communication to his winger on the inside, and he's relaxed on the ball. Yeah,
it's a really nice spot with the holding inside. I mean, it's that's a constructed space if ever you've seen one. Into play off a line out, and we see probably more effective attacks come off line outs that we see off other situations at the minute. I've seen definitely more line outs and scrums in Super Rugby. So what do you see in here, Joe?
So this play here, it's a pre-called setup, but the execution is. There's options on it. Now, the question would be whether it's completely off the cuff, but he has taken that ball. He has identified the shoulder position of the defender in front of him, and he's decided to take that space inside. He's stepped off his left foot, and he knows that he has the support of his player on the outside, so he knows that he can lift that ball, and there's no way that the defender can react to that.
Yeah, that's the key, is it, when it comes to set plays. I mean, if we're showing somebody a picture there now, we're doing a review with the player, and we get them to think about, well, where would you attack right now? Where would you give the ball? My assumption is that most players would be talking about the outside space, ball in behind and outside space. And what I think is really important you picked up on is what the body angles are of the players in and around you right now. And can we punch through those holes? And it's at least equally valuable to take the space that is immediately there in front of you as it is to move the ball to an outside space. So spaces are spaces regardless of where they appear. And the fact it's brought a line break, that means it's effective. So it's about spotting body language, spotting cues, and then finding an opportunity to break through. So we're into some Premiership examples on this occasion. John, just take us through what you're seeing here.
So here we've got Rory Hutchinson, and just to add some context around this, these are the guys that almost statistically come up as being the best line break creators. So not the guys who are breaking the line the most, the guys who are given the pass beforehand. Think of a football assist, and the goal being a line break. So they're given the most line break passes. So Hutchinson here, the way that he takes a lot of teams run this shape. He really is engaged in that line. His almost eyes are completely transfixed by the guy opposite, and I would say he's maybe cut off the out the back option by how far he's engaged, but you still have to respect the option of him as a carrier, and you have to respect the guy on the outside.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, his head position now is probably the thing that stands out for me. Just how engaged he is in front, and that you, as you say, you can't ignore somebody like that. I mean, mechanically, the pass at the back, and indeed space-wise, pass at the back is, as I say, probably less likely, but you still can't ignore the possibility of it, and it just drops him off. And we see this sort of from Hutchinson on a few different examples, which we'll just work our way through.
The way that ball leaves the ruck, there's a early catch from the first forward. There's a great little ball out the back. James Grayson early catch, and that's again not a spin pass. He's just got it out to the space. I'm guessing that Hutchinson's given him a call to say that there's space out wide. Get it to me as early as you can, and that's why Grayson hasn't even engaged in anything else than giving that ball. So he's not worried about where Jamie Roberts is opposite him. He knows he's getting that ball in Hutchinson's hands as early as he can, and Hutchinson has made that call because he believes there's space out wide.
Yeah, real nice analysis of that. So the pre-call coming from the outside, and that's something they say to players pretty regularly to make sure that they are communicating off the ball, particularly those guys out in the wide spaces. They can potentially see a bit more than everybody else, so they can certainly see different things everybody else, particularly where that opportunity is for line break, which they can see really early on is outside. So all the other lines then are just help support it. And then just from turnover, so from lined out turnover at the front.
Again, with context, you have to remember that Leicester are very, very wary of Naivoro on the outside. So naturally, as a team, you're going to have all your shoulders are going to be pointing towards him because he's the main threat. And I think in this game, he was really a big threat. So the way that Manu Tuolangi, he's sort of opposite, but he's not defending the ball or Proctor really. He's almost already defending Naivoro. And the winger as well is already defending by sitting off and trying to use the touchline. And with that space, Hutchinson's he's done his job, but it's almost maybe Proctor who's made that for him. By coming underneath, he's read the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so the players off the ball are working really hard. So Hutchinson himself is engaged, but it's the players off the ball then that they're able to make use of that and then come in and find the spaces from it. Okay, so back into some French rugby. So Toulouse against Connacht back in the European Cup earlier in the year. Just take us through this one, Joe. What kind of things are you spotting?
So this is Thomas Ramos. Just the way that Toulouse have a mentality to almost play from anywhere. But the way that he's identified, a bit like the Finn Russell clip, he's identified there's a seam on the inside, and so there's a seam inside that ruck. The guy competing on the floor, the jackler, has gone in, and they've managed to consume two defenders into the ruck. Ramos has spotted that by stepping on the inside. He's obviously communicating with Medard on his inside, and he's put him in. But if you watch after he passes, he then stays alive, and that little pass there, very similar to Richie Mwanga against the Hurricanes last week. They don't just happen. These guys are highly skilled. He knows that this time is coming, and he knows that Peter Aki is on his outside.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, their ability to read the ball and then be able to react off it is definitely something that sets those kind of players apart. And then you got this one then from a bit of transition. So balls change over on the floor.
Yeah, this is one of my favourites. So all he's done is caught the ball and given it, but watch the explosion and the excitement that he has. It's like a kid in a sweet shop once he's given the pass that it's almost on. So if you play it and let it go at full speed. So once he's given that pass, it's almost like you can hear him shout like, "Oh, it's on now," sort of, and the way that he's like, "Right, I'm on the inside, and I want to score if I can." And obviously, everyone else is flooding as well. It doesn't quite come off, but that's that mentality that you want, that excitement in your players that there's a chance.
Absolutely, and I suppose the awareness of space. I mean, even right now, there's a quick look on the outside, look back at the inside, then to just gauge where he is. Desperately want to get a hold of the ball, gets it to space, and as you pick up, just all out effort then to get back on the inside. And I suppose interestingly, if the ball had have come back inside from there, you can imagine maybe a little stepper and a second rower, probably a good opportunity to get a few more yards. But lovely bit of work off the ball.
But very good defence as well. You know, there was maybe no right for that second rower to work as hard as he did, and he did very well to stop it.
Yeah, absolutely. Still in European Cup then, so Leicester against Racing.
Yep, here we're back to the guys with almost the triple threat, the ones who can pass and run and kick, and Vakatawa's in that mould. Obviously, Finn Russell has got the ball early into his hands to try and engage Manu Tuolangi. And again, Manu Tuolangi has to respect Vakatawa because of his ability to run. We all seen it when he plays for France. But with some of the teams that are out there at the moment, Simon Zebo is a great player as well. The way that he knows if he comes off the shoulder of Vakatawa, he's going to put people in doubt. Reading the shoulders of Adam Thompson, and that creates that space. And it's very hard to defend that. I would be very difficult of me. It wouldn't be my place, but to be critical of anything that anyone's done there because you're so wary of everything that's around you.
Absolutely, and that's something that really sets players apart, is when they can offer those kind of threats. So when you're previewing, when you're thinking about what might a player do, it's hard to predict what Finn Russell's going to do right now. I mean, there's equally as much chance of him passing as there is of putting the ball into his left foot and just dinking the ball over the top. So he can't be ignored. So the inside defence, you can see where their focus is right now. Tigers' defence is actually quite tight, which again, because of the threats immediately in front of them, they couldn't go wide because of the potential for just a little drop off pass that go in between, and then just what's the potential there? That's easily a carry, that's easily a pass, and indeed quite possibly a kick into what is decent bit of space in behind. So, and then Zebo just coming off, and that's just a quality line. Just seeing those turn shoulders.
And maybe with this, we've got to be conscious that Tuolangi has probably watched clips all week of Vakatawa bouncing off that left foot and coming on his inside. And I wouldn't want to go, I'll be doing myself out of a job. But the analysis is very important. But sometimes the players have got to get that feel for themselves, and that's why almost them watching it themselves is as important as a coach telling them be wary of Vakatawa's left foot step. It wouldn't help him necessarily in that situation.
Yeah, it's a really good point. The players have got to understand those, and we just see that again. Gets the ball pretty early, just gets it a bit of space. The pass from Finn Russell itself is just quality. Already his on gain line, nice and flat across the line. I actually really like the slide. So as he receives the ball, he slides from kind of 20 meters off from touchline, then catches about touchline, which is really hard to keep up as an inside defender, particularly when you're looking at the inside threat. So you're thinking about what the ball coming in. You can see shoulders are turned, and then is having to react to a guy that's now 5 meters wider than he was when you saw him last.
And again, Racing up, they're not putting bad players in those channels there. You've got Shavonsi, you've got Teddy Thomas, you've got guys that they've got to be wary of.
Absolutely, yeah. And that again comes back to your point of making sure that they understand those kind of threats before the game. Okay, so into some Edinburgh examples. So we've got a transition. So ball's taken the contact, lost in contact, and then quickly moved away. Just tell us what you're seeing. So
that's Blair Kinghorn. The way he's demanded that ball early, he's put pace on it straight away, and he knows he has to get outside of that the first defender and engage the outside defender. And once he's engaged that outside defender, because the outside defender does not want to be defended in by his position, but once he gets outside of that first defender, he just lifts the ball onto his left. He maybe even does it with one hand there. I can't quite tell on that video, but
yeah, that's one hand. Good spot.
How often would you be saying to do that? But it's worked. And maybe if he has two hands on it, the arm of the inside defender could pull his left arm down and make it a bit messy. When it comes off, he can get away with it. But he's got the engagement of the eyes from the outside defender. He knows he can lift it.
Yeah, it's a really nice spot, particularly of the one-handed pass. I think the thing I really enjoy the most here is that with this step, the intention to get the outside is as soon as he gets into what you could argue is the tackle bite space, he then straightens into it. So the tackler now definitely has to go for him, and then the outside defender also can't ignore. So even head position is straight in front, eyes focused in, so it's hard to ignore that. The ball's quite low, so as a tackler, is actually where do you look right now? Where do you focus? We're told to focus on the fixed variables rather than the non-fixed, and yet it's the non-fixed, the ball position and hand position that's done the job in this occasion. Okay, back into your own club, Joe. So just tell us what you're seeing here.
A situation where the defender has made the decision for the attacker. The way that Jonathan Joseph has jumped up, this comes off of a kick return, so that our guys have worked out wide early, and the way that Joseph flies up almost makes a decision for Toiava there. He's caught the ball, he's bounced on the outside as he's caught it. His right hand transfers the ball to his left arm. The right hand comes out not automatically, but deliberately. And there is a good fend, and he knows that the threat is for us is on the outside. So if he can get the ball into Raka's hands early, he knows that's a good option for us.
Yeah, again, it's spotting space. It's one of those things in front. It's you're picking up on Joe Sifkin on the line. You already knows he's held his feet. He's definitely not going to run in onto that ball. He's catching that as static as he can, and in fact is sliding slightly out on receipt. So yeah, real nice spot, and then get racking into some space. And then this one was a game that brought up some fantastic rugby. And in fact, this was covered in one of my other videos in terms of it being a 3-phase pattern. And that it was pre-planned in terms of where the phases were going to flow, but I'm just really interested in how you're picking up on the execution of the skill here, Joe.
Yep. So the way the player's gone, it's been hit up there. We've come round with the ball into the hooker's hands there. With the hooker Aluja, he knows he has a forward on his outside who's gonna hit hard. Even on that, just before I get to that point, the way that the prop, the loose head, has come round and just raised his hands means that it engages the inside defender.
Absolutely.
Then it's gone to Aluja, and he's got the ball, early catch again. Ball on the outside to Lopez. Everyone has to respect every runner. They have to respect the 6, Fisher, who's running on a down line. Mm-hmm. And then the ball out the back to Toyava, that double pump has just engaged the defender, and Abendenham's away. Yeah,
it's incredibly impressive. It's one of my probably top 2 or 3 favorite tries of the season. It comes from a pre-planned phase. The thing I like about it is just how, as you pick up, just how believable every action is, and regardless of the fact that it's fairly certain where the ball's going to go in terms of they knew where the ball needed to get to. All the components of it are being run really well. I mean, we don't see this too often, Joe, but it's something that probably see a little bit more from certain teams. How much time do you spend focusing on these kind of different type of plays, Joe, where you got a hooker at the back, a Lucia at the back with Falgood coming short?
In terms specifically for them, it probably wouldn't be something that they do too often. But with the talent of players that we have, we believe that the forwards can handle. So we'd never just construct moves that involve backs handling. How lucky we are in that with Fritz Lee and Deturia, these guys can handle the ball. So often we can put a player that if someone sees an 8 off a 5-man lineup, they might only think the 8 is a running option, but we can use them as a passing or running option, as can other teams. There's lots of teams that can do that. Someone like Dombrandt for Quins, you have to respect his running option, but he actually undid Huss with his ability to pass. So those guys are really important, and the more and more we're getting forwards who are really comfortable on the ball, and that's where the international game has taken sort of the club game by the scruff of the neck and dragged it forward. Your Vunapolas, Sinklers, these guys who are handling the ball, and into the answer to the first bit of the question, we spend quite a bit of time on our sort of 3 phases, 4 phases. I listened to a podcast that Eddie Jones did, and he said that rugby is kind of a merge between NFL and football now, the way that it's really highly structured and then it's really destructured. And I think that's a perfect analogy for it. We highly focus on those first few phases because we can control it as much as possible. But after that, it's not like we just sit and draw with the little X's and O's. We have to be ready for the destructured elements of the game.
Yeah, cool. Really nice breakdown of it. So into Leinster for these next 2 or 3 clips, and we've seen loads of quality from Leinster the last couple of seasons, and there's probably these kind of players are the ones that are really making a difference for them.
Yeah, so this is Lamoy, Lama, maybe a bit French there, but this is highly destructured play. But the way that he gives, a little bit like Ramos again, he's moving that ball, he's looking for opportunity. He decides it's not where he was going. He bounces back. He lifts the ball. He then stays alive after the pass and is an option on the inside.
Yeah, and we'll see that within this clip as well, just in terms of his reading of the game.
That bounce inside, the way that he gets also King Ringrose has done a good job there. He's got the ball into his hands. He knows that he's engaged that real outside defender, and he knows he has James Lowe in space.
Yeah, absolutely. So initially, within these plays, we're clearly, we got a picture right now. He knows what that picture is, and there's just constant head turns all the way through, spotting where the space is, and indeed where the opportunity to get the ball is. My, I suppose, perspective on this type of thing is that players are really thinking about how they can create better opportunities. So this is a space right now. He kind of knows that's closing, and it's immediately then getting out. Whereas if he runs or passes to immediately where the space is on the outside, they probably end up with a drifting defender. So it's just manipulating players, getting them to bite first, then getting out to the outside space, and then in an even better position then.
The ability of the player to, through destructured games, through just playing lots of touch matches, through playing lots of matches of rugby, they get that level of experience where they can decide that.
Okay, so before we go into some of the other type of threats that players might do, just look at these last couple. We touched on these slightly as we've gone through in terms of the number of threats that a player that can present, and then the unanticipated things that they do. So talk us through some of the skills you're seeing here, Joe.
So this is a scrum play. The ball is to give the ball out the back to Toiava with the option of Raka out the back of Fofana. So what's happened here is obviously Toulouse, firstly they're offside, but I would say that. But the ball's got early into Toiava's hands. He's read the line speed of the defence. He's then decided that if he gives the ball to Fofana, then maybe he's in trouble. He's also decided that if he gives the ball out the back to Raka, then Guitoun and Medard could push forward and maybe shut him off. So he's decided that by the position of Aki, that he can beat him on the inside. And then in terms of technical play, the way that he steps off the right foot, the left hand comes out as a fend, and he then knows that Fofana is going to continue his run, and that little ball out the back has put him away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the thing I really enjoy about these setups is that there's lots of options, but they give you clarity as to what will be there if you break the line. So you, given just absolute, we are going to do this. Clearly, there's some weaknesses to that kind of approach, but having an awareness within your setup of where players are likely to be, just allow this decision to happen because he knows he's going to have support there. I think that's a quality bit of reaction. Okay, Joe, so we've gone through loads of potential carry threats. We've gone through some nice offloads, players who can pass the ball into space, and then we've got that extra threat, which we're seeing from some players more and more as the weeks and months roll by in terms of development of the game, which is the kick option, and just the options that can give a team, and indeed how hard is to defend. So we've got Wasps against Worcester. Just talk us through what you're seeing here, Joe.
So the ball's come out the back of the two forwards who've run hard lines. It's got into the hands of Gopeth. So the way that they've engaged here, it's got to Gopeth, and he's felt that heat from the outside again. He's stepped back in, and I'm guessing by how flat everyone is, he's maybe communicated already to the outside, or the calls come outside in, that he's going to drop that ball into the space out there. Mm-hmm. You might find that his first option was to take the ball and roll it in there anyway, but the way that defenders come up means that he's had that ability to adapt, step, and then kick, which would make it even more outstanding, just to drop it onto your left foot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's always hard to know, isn't it, without asking the players. And something that I do on occasions, or speak to analysts and ask them when I think something is a case, try and make sure that I'm relatively accurate. I don't know the answer to this one, whether it is in the moment reaction or whether they have had a quick talk about the space in behind and he's called it through. I mean, either way, it's outrageously well reacted. Even the step back inside to quite a high defender. You probably know that by that point in the game, really. Kind of 57 minutes in, you probably know what the defence are doing. Either way, whether planned or in the moment, or just a fantastic reaction to a kind of a momentary thing, just a lovely little bit of threat to be able to offer. And I think having that completely changes how teams are able to defend against you. Okay, so go Ulster against Harlequins. This is another team that are able to bring some of those threats with the kick. I really like the way that this has been done. So it's fairly fairly uncommon for grubbers for some teams, and other teams seem to bring them out quite regularly. And I like the way this is set up. So what caught your eye here, Joe?
Well, it's especially uncommon in this setup. Very rarely, I think Brad Barrett, I've seen do it once, but the setup with the 12 and the 13 coming hard with 10 out the back, that's happening an awful lot at the moment. But the way that he takes the ball early, he actually checks to look for that space, so it must have been pre-called. The first action that he does is to look straight ahead and to look at that position. So he's tried to see it. He's then dropped the ball onto his foot, but it's interesting. I'd like to know whether they pre-called it from the video beforehand, or whether they pre-called it in game from how they felt, or it came from the sideline. It'd be really interesting to find that out. Unfortunately, they were an opponent of ours, so we never did find that out. But.
Yeah, I think just in terms of body language, you pick up on, and think as most analysts would say the same thing, that the things that where eyes are being drawn to are effectively where the players' eyes are being drawn to. And a lot of coaches ask about what you look for in a game, what things are standing out for you. And often it's trying to put yourself in almost in the body of the player and think about what are they seeing right now? What's influencing their decisions? So clearly large space in behind. I mean, eye is immediately drawn to that. Outside defence are dropped off. So why would an outside defence be dropped off? Well, potentially because they're thinking about out the back plays and they're just going to jockey across. So you're preempting constantly what you think players are going to do. And then when they can add this threat, when you're going to preview, that then becomes actually quite hard. And then you start to talk about, well, we've got to have a sweep in there. So you stop leaving that space. And if you have a sweep in there, a space comes elsewhere. And that's the cat and mouse of an analyst's life, I suppose, isn't it?
And to be fair to Harlequins in that situation, how often are you seeing that ball get dropped on? So they've hedged their bets that it won't be. If you take it back slightly, you'll see Landagno, he's pointing to cover that space. Maybe there's been a bit of a miscommunication between him and, I think it's Chisholm. Maybe that's an error that they've done, and he would normally be a bit across. But even if he was a little bit further across, if that kick was executed like that, I don't think he'd get there.
It would appear that there would normally be somebody interested in that space, and even now, I mean, they've if you were planning it, there was somebody coming into that space, but just unable to cover the pretty decent drop on and carry through. This is potentially, but or it's definitely up there with one of my favourite kick throughs of the season, particularly because of where it is on the field, where the conditions and context. It was a pretty miserable day down in the southwest. So just talk us through, Joe. What type of things did you pick up from this?
Yep. So this is Slade, and I'd hazard a guess that he would feature quite highly in this if he hadn't been injured or hadn't been on international duty. But the way that he takes the ball early, everyone knows that Slade can pass well. So these defenders on the outside have to be wary that he could give the ball to Noel and whoever is on his outside. But that little slight jump step again, and the put of pace on it, and then obviously that step is magical. But with him, you're respecting the kick, the pass, and the run at all points. Mm-hmm. He has a little look to see if he could float the pass out off his right hand there. He maybe decides that it's not necessarily an option, and also maybe the depth of the fullback has helped that decision for him, because the fullback might be able to get off. But he engages the fullback, and then the ability to drop it on a full sprint and not kick it straight into the fullback or straight into touch is pretty special. And the weight of kick turns out to be perfect.
Yeah, it's quality nudge. The fact that he's at speed with it, as you say, is pretty impressive. And indeed the fact that if you preview him, you can kick off both feet. So you don't know whether it's going to be a chip over the top. You look where body language is right now from defender. It's potentially looking inside. You don't necessarily expect that to be coming off the other foot. Clearly, most players we preview, they tend to be right footers. Smaller percentage of left footers. Players who can do both feet, then that's very, very difficult to pick up and to read cues. then in a slightly different context, we still see the same kind of skills and just picking up on having a threat off both feet. So it's off a ruck, nice little planned run around play, and that's then coming off the right foot. So again, how do you pick that? In terms of play, that's a pre-planned wraparound play where the ball was definitely coming up the back. I mean, there was never a chance of that ball going short in terms of what the pattern was all about, even though that potentially was where the space was. Now what you do? So you can't ignore one of the best finishers in the Premiership on the outside. You can't ignore a guy who's got incredibly good footwork, good pass, and good in contact. And the one thing that they haven't picked up right now of all the possibilities was the fact that there was a nice little grubber going to come through, which was wonderfully collected, and just quality bit of rugby. And then Noel then does what he does best, finishes on the outside. And then slightly different example. So again, going a little bit laterally, seeing the space in front. What kind of things picking up from you, Joe?
So he's had that early look. I think before he receives the ball, he looks just ahead of himself to see that space is there. So now you look where he's looking. He can see that maybe that the winger or the blind winger is struggling to cover from the other wing. Both of them are looking, the guy on the outside as well. He just knows he needs to get that ball, and he's just planning on kicking it all the way. For me there, he's decided to drop it on the way he shapes the ball when he first gets it. They're both on the same page.
I mean, for me, I've said this a few times, the players being certain on what their intention is at this point, it makes such a difference for skill execution. So he's looked in front, he knows where the space is. Right now, he's made a decision what he's going to do. And because he's certain in his outcomes, he's then able to be fully committed to it, and the execution of it is helped as a result. I mean, that is on the buzzer in every possible way, and a wonderful finish in the corner. And we finish up with a couple of crackers.
Yeah, so some of these are pretty cool, and from the video, we would never have a situation where it's like, right, you kick it every time, but players watch who stands where, the width that the fullback's in, where they stand off of midfield scrums, off of left-hand scrums and things, and they just decide that this would be the best option for them to execute. Obviously, if you don't have someone who can drop the ball on their foot accurately, you're probably not going to do it so much. But the way that you can engage the one-handed pickup, the get out, means that Russell has no option but to tackle, and then it becomes a foot race. And they're two pretty quick players, but the kick's accurate, and I'm not sure what more Racing can do in that situation.
Yeah, I would struggle to find a defensive strategy to cover every single option we've got going on here. And just pick up on your point, Joe, that the pre-planning aspect here is there's a lot of known variables. So it's not a set piece. You know where people are going to be stood. You have a decent idea of their habits. You've seen them week in, week out, and the group have then come up with a strategy that means that they can execute and score. So, and I think there's maybe some misunderstanding as to pre-planning and what that actually means. He doesn't remove options, as I think is often said. It gives you options that enable you to put points on the board, and that's what we're seeing here repeatedly. Lots of good in-action adaptation, lots of examples. And this example, just a little bit of awareness of what was on, and then you get moments like this, which is a really good one to finish on, which is one of those moments that you probably can't pre-plan exactly what's going on, but you know there's a possibility of it. So just this one, John.
So on here, echo exactly what you say. There's no way you can plan to pass the ball right, swing it back across the back of the ruck to the left, and then drop it on your wrong foot to kick through. It's never going to be a plan. But as it is, the space has been spotted that there's a potential opportunity out there. Unsure whether it's been communicated from the outside by Raka or just seen by Toyava. I'd almost say, maybe from knowing them pretty well, I'd guess that he's seen what's happening and he's decided late to drop it on the foot. I think his first option there probably is to give the ball to Raka. And then he's had the ability to drop it on his foot late. And again, it's those triple threat players, Slade being one of them and Gutai being one of them. When they get that ball, they can do all options to beat you, and you have to respect it. And I think that's something that's coming into the game more and more. The outside backs being, you see a lot of Lazowski, you see Slade, a lot of fly half type players playing in the outside channel. So if they're an athlete or they're a fullback, they happen quite often. Even a Danny Cipriani played at fullback a lot. Fly halves all generally have it, but they might not necessarily have the athletic ability to play in the outside channels. I think that's something that all of these guys have had.
Yeah, definitely. The variety of skills they've got is pretty outrageous. I think probably the final point I'll make on this one, in terms of how do you decide whether something is pre-planned or not, and does it matter indeed? On this example, I don't think it is pre-planned for the kick, and that's because Raka right now is looking in towards the ball, his angle's going outwards, and as the ball's kicked, you could just see that small reaction back in. And in this one, I just think it's an outrageously good kick, which is a real nice one to finish on, because it is just spot in space and a player then reacting off the ball to get through and score. So real nice way to finish.
And the way that we do our work, we're always trying to make rugby controllable, but it's not. And so it's more how they can give them confidence in situations that aren't controllable.
Absolutely. Joe, that was really enjoyable. We've covered lots of good and interesting parts of the game, the triple threat option, and indeed some of the challenges the defences will face, and how attack then can pose lots of challenges to those players. And hopefully we've helped people to understand slightly how they can help their players, and when they're watching the game, type of things that they might look for, and things that might stand out from this point forwards. So Joe, thank you very much for your time. Really enjoyed that, and look forward to speaking to you again soon.
No problem. Thank you, Grant.